All right. So yesterday we began our look at linear patterns and specifically finding rules for linear patterns. And it's important that you do a few things. First, you need to recognize linear patterns. Okay? A couple of different ways. From pictures, right? Like the matchsticks and the boxes and the hexagons and that kind of thing. So you need to be able to recognize linear patterns from looking at a pattern. Okay? And the other way is from a chart. And remember, the chart was that, and it can go up and down or sideways. Someone was saying they liked them sideways. So do I. And remember, you have an N, which stands for the number of the figure. First figure, second figure, third figure, whatever. And then you have a capital T, which is the term you get in that if you follow that pattern for that particular figure. Right? Okay? So you need to be able to recognize linear patterns from a picture in the chart. The second thing, you need to be able to find a rule for a linear pattern. Okay? And you have the steps for it. I'm not going to go over the steps and rewrite the steps. Those were in the notes from yesterday. But I do want to talk about the formula. Remember, it involves using a formula. Does the formula ever change? No. A formula, that's literally what a formula means. Form. Think like you're filling out a form for something, right? It means just put in the right numbers in the right spot. So, what is the formula? Anybody remember?
Can we put that in steps?
Well, we have it in hold on a second. No, T.
T equals something.
A N plus B.
What about the minus?
Okay? It can be either plus or minus. We generally put plus, but if B is negative, if you're subtracting, it would be a minus. So you can put, if you want, you could put plus, plus or minus. Do you remember that? I think I would talk to you about that. That is not a fraction. What does that slash mean in mathematics? The word or. This is A or B. So if you see that plus slash minus, that means plus or minus, depending on if you're adding or subtracting. There you are. Okay? Now again, we've written the steps for doing this yesterday, but we're gonna go through a couple of examples just to refresh you. Okay? But you must memorize the formula, and you have to know the pattern that we're going to use. Yes?
I kind of lost my notes from the last lesson.
Okay.
But I did the education program, so I know how to do it, but it just lost the notes.
Okay. Well, we'll get you caught up with somebody or something so we can get the notes. All right? All right. So what I'm going to do is let's do an example. So if we're doing an example together in class, your pencil should be down. Okay? So are we ready? So let's look at the example. What else should be down? Okay. All right. Now, here we go. So I'm just going to make up a pattern. It really doesn't matter, right? Because we know it's a linear pattern as long as there is a common what? Difference. So it really doesn't matter. So that's always 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Never changes, right? And so let's just do a pattern. Who cares? Say we have 14, 12, 10, 8. You already know the difference because I picked an easy one. It doesn't matter. We're going to walk through the steps, right? The first thing you need to do is find the common difference. So remember, you're just going to subtract, but make sure you're subtracting in the right order. So it's the second one minus the first one. If you do it the other way around, what's going to happen?
It's going to be round.
You're going to get the wrong sign, right? It's not going to be a negative like this one wants to be negative. So 12 minus 14 gives me what, guys? Minus 2. Then we'll do the next 2. 10 minus 12 gives me what?
Minus 2.
Why do I need to do 2 of them?
To make sure
to make sure it's actually linear. What if I got different numbers there?
It's either non-linear or you do it linear.
Right? It's either nonlinear or you've made a mistake. Perfect. Okay? But in this case, it's fine. Yeah? So that gives us t is equal to negative 2n, because this common difference is your a in your formula, right? So you just put it in front of your n. Now, second step is to simply test that. And we test it always with this first number. We always use the first one because that makes n what? 1, which is the easiest number in the world to work with, right? So 14 equals negative 2 times 1, which gives me 14 equals negative 2. Is that true or false?
False.
It's false, right? Okay. Now, if it was true, then I'm done with the pattern. I can just move on, right? Okay. But if it's not, I need to find b, which is that thing we're either adding or subtracting at the end. And I do that by simply add or subtract, okay, to get the number. So this is the number I need to move, right? How do I move a minus 2? I'm going to add 2 to where? To both sides, right? Okay. And then what does that give me?
16.
And that number is my b. So just move it across the equal symbol, and it'll give you your b. So my pattern now is t equals, the negative 2n part I knew was right because that's the common difference. What kind of 16? Plus 16. And there's my pattern. There's my rule, I mean.
Okay, I get it.
Okay. Right? So just if this number doesn't equal this number, then move that one over there with the other one, and you'll find out what b you need, what you either need to add or subtract. It always gives it to you. Mm-hmm.
Also, on the education perfect, it does it slightly different from the way.
Yeah,
So we're just trying to
it does.
figure
That's
out
like
what, so, you know, t
to
equals
start,
minus
so if
2.
it adds or
If that
minus
was right,
in the pattern, then you
put
put that
t,
to the
plus
first
t
term,
would be
and then
minus 2.
whatever's left over
That's
you
not correct.
Right.
Minus
Yeah.
2 is
So there's another way, and if you see it that way, perfect.
That's not correct. So how
It makes no difference to me. Okay? All right? So you can write that one down now if you want. I'll pause the... Okay. So we have our n and our t. Good. And I only have 3 values here. Is that enough to be able to do a pattern, guys? You bet. Doesn't matter. Okay, Bo. Bo. Hello, Bo. All right. So I need to fill in my n's. So what is n always going to be? There you go. Just 1, 2, 3. First number, second number, third number in the term. Good job. Monique. Hello. I need now to fill in my t's. So what am I going to put in the bottom row?
12, 15, 18.
There you go. Excellent. Right? And so that tells me that the first number is 12, the second number is 15, the third number is 18, and the ... means it continues forever in that same pattern. Yeah? Good job. Okay. Yes.
Could you work out the next few terms and write them in the table too?
Yep, and that's exactly where our next part of the lesson is going to be. You're seeing ahead of me there. Isabella.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we need to determine first our what? Common difference. And to do that, I'm simply going to do some subtraction. Okay, Olivia? All right, Olivia, what's the first 2 numbers I need to subtract? Yeah, 15 minus 12, right? Just do them in order, which gives me a 3. Amy, what's the next 2 numbers I need to subtract? 18 minus 15, good, which gives me another 3, which tells me then, Kath, that tells me then that this pattern is linear and the common difference is 3. So I already know that t equals 3n is part of my pattern, right? Now, I was trying to get you to do it using some algebra, but y'all don't like that. So we'll just do this. It's a no. Yeah, I'm going to go with what makes you happy. So we're going to take our first number. Now, if this is positive, we're not going to add it. We're going to what? subtract it. So in other words, what it's saying is we already have the 3 part, right? Okay, so we're just going to take the 3 away from the 12, which gives us what? 9. And that 9 is my scenario B. There we go. So, plus 9. Okay? Because y'all don't like testing it for some reason. I don't know why. Lazy.
It's just because that, to me, when I look at that, and when I will look back at that, all I see is a bunch of numbers.
Ah, well, that means you need to practice it more.
In brackets
Okay?
with
Okay, well then I know you saw some algebra. All right, so you're going to use a rule to predict numbers in a pattern. And they can give you either n or t, right? Now, if they give you n, that's easy. You just plug in the number and do the math. If they give you t, then you're going to have to solve the equation using some simple basic algebra. Okay? So, if you have n, you're simply going to use the process of substitution. And that's a name, and it's a process, and it's a thing you need to know. Substitution, what does that mean when you substitute?
Subtracting.
Put something in
Put something in place of something.
put something in place of another thing, right? So if they give you n, you just substitute and then do the math. Because all of it's on one side of the equation.
Is
If
this
you
steps or notes?
If you, these are notes. If you have t, then it's a little bit different. We still have to do the substitution, but we have to use algebra to solve. And remember, though, most of you weren't in my class, you probably may not have heard it like this, but algebra is really easy if you think about it. All we need to do with algebra is do the opposite operation. So do the opposite. So if two things are, if something is a positive, what's the opposite of a plus 6? Minus 6 or negative 6, exactly. If it's negative 5, what's the opposite of minus 5? Plus 5. If it's times 2, what's the opposite of multiply by 2? Divide by 2. So just think of it as doing the opposite. Yes?
Are we going to do like minus 5 minus 5? Which would probably be
No,
yes.
not in this. No, not when you're working with specific algebra.
minus
So just do the opposite.
That's cool.
Okay.
Minus
Okay,
Minus.
settle down. All right, so here we go. So let's look at a couple of their examples. So do we have that down? So we're going to use a rule to predict a pattern. We're going to look at some of their examples and go through. So we've seen the value of a term by putting the number into the rule. It works for any term. So if you want to find the 100th term, okay, it's there. It'll be there. All right, guys, come on.
Guys, come on.
Hurry.
Well,
Okay, so you can tell if it's an N because they give you some kind of qualifier. 10th, 20th, whatever. Okay? All right. And to do that, to find it, all we're simply going to do is put it in the proper place. Now, remember this one, they're not giving us N and T, they're giving M and T. What does M stand for? Matches. So they're using specific things, specific items, and triangles. But usually it's T and N. So all you need to do is substitute T equals 100. So putting 100 in place of T gives you 2 times 100, which is what? 200, because that's the original pattern, the rule. So 200 plus 1 is 201. Okay?
That makes so much sense.
So just plugging it in and doing the math.
Wait,
Okay?
I needed to write that down.
It's in your thing. You're going to write down some examples we do together, so don't worry about it. We want to know how many triangles you can make with 25 matches. Is 25 matches a T or an N?
T.
Yeah. So that changes things a little bit because of where the T is, or the M in this case. So
have to get the number matches and make as many as you
So watch carefully, guys. So here's our rule. M equals 2T plus 1. This time we have 25 matches, so that means the 25 is going to go on the m side. So we end up with 25 equals 2t plus 1. So what letter is it that I'm trying to solve for this time?
T.
The t. I need to get the t by itself. Is the t by itself right now?
No.
No.
Take the
I've got to move that 2, and I've got to move that 1, right?
So you minus
So you
1
minus
from 25, which is 24.
There we
and
go.
2 times 12, which is 24.
Well, not 2 times 12.
24, 25.
Okay.
Yes.
So the way you need to think about it is you need to think about how things are connected, first of all. Because what you're doing is, when you're solving, what we're doing is we're taking it apart. So we're going to use the order of operations, but we're going to do it backwards. Because we're taking things apart, we're doing the opposite. We're going to work from the bottom up. And remember, it's bed mass, right, for y'all?
I didn't do
Isn't
better.
that
So-
mass or blood mass?
brackets,
Okay.
exponents.
So addition and subtraction usually come, guys, hold on a minute. Addition and subtraction are usually when?
After.
At the very end, right? But we're doing the opposite to solve an equation, so we're going to use it from the bottom, what? Up. So we look for any addition or subtraction first. Is there anything added or subtracted to my t?
Yes.
Yes, the 1 is added or subtract? Added. And the opposite of add is what? Subtract. And what you have to do is remember, though, that an equation is a balance. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do exactly the same thing where? To the other. So if I subtract 1 from that side, I have to subtract 1 from this side. What's 25 minus 1?
24.
The 2t won't change, but the 1s will subtract away, which is what I want to happen. I want to get rid of things. Okay? What does D and M stand for?
Division.
Okay? Now, do I have something multiplied times my t?
Yes.
Yes. What number is multiplied times my t? 2. And the opposite of multiply is?
Divide.
Divide. So I'm going to divide this side by 2 to get rid of those 2's. But if I divide that side by 2, what?
Divide the other side.
The other side. On this side, 24 divided by 2 is 12. On this side, 2 divided by 2 makes 1, but 1t is the same as just plain old t, right? Okay? All right?
Answer is 12.
Because it's 2 times t, the opposite of multiply by 2 is what? Divide by 2. So what we did was divide both sides by 2. 24 divided by 2 gave us 12. Over here, the 2's divide away. They really make a 1, but do I need to write 1t?
No.
No. So we don't write the 1. We just write plain old t. Is my t completely by itself?
Yes.
Yes. Now, it's on the it says 12 equals t, but is that the same thing as t equals 12?
Yes.
Yes. Remember, you can write them in any other order. So as long as when you get that t by itself, you know you're done. Okay? Sound familiar? Look familiar?
Question.
Yes.
If you're doing like algebra or something, and say it was like 12x on the other side, how do you solve for x?
Well, if it's 12x, what does 12x literally mean? 12
12
times x. And what's the hold on a second. What's the opposite of multiply?
divide.
So you would simply divide by 12. So you just do the opposite operation.
I think we have
So if you had t on that side as well.
Okay?
So 12x equals t.
Then you can't solve it. You can only solve something in algebra using one variable at a time. Okay? All right. Everybody got that written down? We're good?
I don't have that written
All right. Take a second to write it down. And on the exam, when you take your assessment, when you take your assessment, these will divide out evenly, so you don't have to worry about the decimals because when you're doing these patterns, they come out to be decimals. Now, you might have a pattern with a fraction in it. We'll see as we go. Okay? All right. Yes. Not sure. Okay? All right.